Hey everyone, today's writer short with Tracee, your resident author, is about tips and tools you can use to get yourself back into your writing project. I've been off one of my writing projects for a while. Well, just one of them. I should clarify that I have been working on a nonfiction book that I have just about finished. I just need to write the front matter, which includes things like the introduction, how to read this book, the dedication, the preface. Those are things that go in the front matter of a nonfiction book and sometimes a fiction book too. But I am starting to wrap that up. And I say that because I don't want to imply that I haven't been writing, but I want to clarify that switching between fiction and nonfiction can be really tough sometimes. At least it has been for me. I've been going full throttle on the fiction, and one tip that I have is that I actually did a class for one of the chapters of RWA, and that really forced me to write every single day and to get those lectures done. The class was strictly lectures, and that meant that everything had to be written down. And there were 15 chapters or 15 different learning modules for my book that is about auditing your author life. So that book is almost done. I have received it back from the editor and I'll be going through it. But soon after I got back the edits, I wanted to pick back up a story that everybody's been waiting for, and I'm finally getting ready to finish it. And that is Occasional Hero, which I'm really excited about. So what I wanted to share is that having a hard time getting myself back into that project, which is a fiction project, I came up with these 5 different things that I've been doing slowly. And I know what to do. That's the problem. We all know what to do. It's just a matter of doing it. And what I wanted to share with you is, one, I needed a constant feed of input to submerge myself into the story. And one of the ways I did that was to just have the software that I use, Microsoft Word, read the story. Like, I didn't want to read it. I just did not want to deal with it. I didn't want to tackle it. But using the not the dictation, but the speech, the text to speech part, which is I had to actually look up a tutorial on YouTube to find it. But even though it's robotic, there's only 4 people that you can choose from, like Alex and Samantha, and all of them are very artificial intelligence, very robotic. They don't have any real feeling as, say, Alexa might have, who I can't say, or they'll start talking to me and trying to do something for me. But Lady A has a little bit more feeling, and they can also read your book. So that's another way you could have the text to speech, but you'd have to put your book in Kindle, and only you can have access to it. You are able to do that, but you would be able to have her read it, and you could also get yourself into it that way. So I use my Microsoft Word to read my own book and just go through it. And then I was slowly able to kind of win myself back into it. I say that because the robotic reading it was kind of like, wow, you're not doing justice to this. And that kind of brings you in a little bit. And then you're like, well, okay, I found an issue that the artificial or the fake voice is telling me. And I was like, oh, that sentence sounds terrible. Let me work on it. So just kind of gaming and tricking yourself back into like, wow, something's wrong with this. Let's see about fixing it. But really low effort for them to read it for you, the lazy way, and kind of bring about those nuances that you need to get yourself back into it. You'll get mad at that voice that has no feeling and no emotion, and you'll be able to question whether or not, well, did I put the feeling in there? Did I put the emotion in there? Everything that's missing, did I put that in there? And can I go back and do it? So that's one way to trick yourself and to bring yourself back into the work. The next way is to listen to an audiobook. I also haven't been reading any fiction for the last few months. I've been reading a lot of nonfiction, obviously, to work on my nonfiction book and reading the front matter and the back matter and seeing how people are setting up their books. So it's like I can't get into some of the stuff that I'm reading physically let me try audiobooks again. And I always swore that I didn't like listening to fiction in audio. I love nonfiction. The reason why is that if you leave the atmosphere of what's happening in the fiction world that's being read to you, you can almost lose the entire story. If you're not present or if your mind goes away for just a minute, you're kind of like, what happened? And so then you need to rewind. So for the first part, at least, I made myself maybe 5 or 6 chapters really not do anything and just focus on the narrators. And these are some really good narrators, by the way. And it's almost like a production. There's lots of intonation and different tones for the different voices for the male and the female. And it's really good. And I'm reading or listening to on Audible, by the way, On a Quiet Street. I think that's the name of it. I will put it up here or somewhere. So it's really going good. And I'm already on chapter 15 or 16, I forget. But I'm listening, also making myself listen about 30 to 40 minutes a night. And then it gets good. And then I keep listening. So I'm interested to finally finish a fiction audiobook. But just thinking about what they're writing, when you have a drought, you should read no matter what anyway. And I always have known that for the last 20 plus years. I've known that if I can't write, I need to read because input promotes output. And so I'll get kind of, for lack of a better analogy, stuffed with things that I'm listening to that I need to then like push it out. Okay. And that really helps. So listening to, I would even recommend you can listen to fiction or nonfiction. I don't think it really matters. I think the ideas just get into you some kind of way, minimal effort. You're really relying on the narrators and electronics to really do it. And you're not having to pick up a physical book. I still love my physical books. I like reading on Kindle too, but just there was a disconnect if I didn't really pay attention at the beginning of a fiction story in order to follow the story for the entire time. My mind wanders. I think about to-do lists and sometimes just can't focus. And what I was saying about that is with nonfiction, people talk more in bites. So you could get a sentence here. If you miss the next one, it's not a big deal. You can get the next sentence and the sentence after that, and you miss another two. You're still in whatever instructional information they're telling you to do. But it's not so bad that you're like, I have to rewind this entire thing in order to find out what's going on. So that's why it was a disconnect for me as far as fiction versus nonfiction in the audio world. Next thing is that what are the professions of my characters? For one is a chef, and I already love cooking and looking at cooking shows. But since we cut the cord to cable, I haven't seen many cooking shows. So go online, go on YouTube for free and get those shows that you missed. Look at how to make recipes. My character is a chef who has acquired her first restaurant and really trying to make a go of it. Of course, there's villains and other barriers and conflict that will try to deter her from having her own place and moving forward with her life. But in order to know about all the restaurant business, startups, architecture, what do people cook? What are some of the most famous dishes in the world that people like and that are crowd pleasers? What are the ingredients? Where does she have to source things in order to make those dishes? All of that stuff that I'm learning and listening to, whether I use it or not, is not really the point. But it is to get in the mindset of that character and to really study what would they be studying right now if they were sitting around not making YouTube videos and not giving writing advice. They would be cooking something, trying new recipes. How many times do people cook something? A professional chef have to cook something in order to perfect it. That's also really interesting. I can't promise that's going to be in the book, but that's just a question that came. So really getting in the mindset, the other character, the hero, is a military person. I have experience with family military, but not so much from the perspective of a actual military enlisted person who's currently serving or been on several tours. You could interview family for that, but you could also listen to some of the books that military people have written. You could watch some of the news things about war and about the family and read, different various entries that people have put online as kind of a diary about military life. So when you really think about you're going to write about these characters that you don't live every day, the next best way is to really read their stories firsthand, their own accounts, and then try to submerge yourself. I'm listening to a cooking show and watching it because I want to see the finalized dish, but I'm just listening to the words and what they're saying, not just kind of what they do. And this is the final thing, but what goes into it, not over mixing something or not burning it or steaming it, like all these different ways in which to cook food and that the chef would do. And all of those things will bring people into the story. They'll be like, wow, you really know what you're talking about. Or they'll be like, you don't know anything. You don't actually do that. Filet mignon is a souffle. Who knows? But those are some of the things that you want to be finding out if you don't know, and different spices. That has also been fun to know where things come from, where they originated from, and how people, chef would use them in his or her. The next thing is to take yourself out of your comfort zone by watching things that you don't normally watch. I love dramas and romance, but I have been really getting into thrillers lately, kind of whodunit, murder mysteries, and things that I don't normally watch. For one, I seem to turn them into my own personal nightmare. So I would suggest maybe even watching horror unless it's really something you just can't handle. If you don't like it just because you don't like it or you think it's fake and gory, I would beg to differ that some of the newer horrifying films are really psychologically horrifying. And so if you can handle it, watch it and just understand or try to understand the intricacies that people are doing and that the producer and the characters and things do. Watched a movie just the other day called The Lie, and it was amazing how just one lie just kept leading, and then not to give any spoilers away, but it wasn't even a real lie. And so that was surprising, and I thought it was really good. So it is on, I forget what it's on, but I will let people know in the description. And finally, the next thing is to read short stories and novellas. I don't really like short stories or novellas. I really like longer pieces of work. I write longer. I've only written 3 novellas, and they were torture. But the reason why they were torture is because it forces you to get to the gist of the story, all of the elements from the inciting incident to the middle, to the conflict and the resolution in a shorter amount of time. And when you have to do that, that forces you to cut out all extraneous details and things that aren't really needed to move the story forward. And when you force yourself to do that, you can write much shorter, much more concise, and your editor can also help you more because you've already done some of that overwriting. I am a huge overwriter. I will write 100,000 words for something that's going to be 75 to 80,000. And I always try to do that no matter what, because I would rather have to cut than to try to figure out something or how can I make this longer. And sometimes I may pad the work with things that I don't really need. So the overwriting helps me as I get ready to edit my book in the final stages because I've already stuffed everything I possibly can. And when I go back, I'm actually trimming the fat. And sometimes you should do a second and a third pass through because you really want to make everything tight. But I'm going through words and taking out everything to get down to 85 to 90,000 words. That means I'm going to cut at least 15 to 20,000 words, but I can only cut those if I have really overwritten. And so that was actually a comment that I received in one of my judging. And so it kind of became the one little crutch that I need to work out. There are other crutches. I'm not saying that's my only issue, but I'm saying knowing what they are can really help you fix them. And that is the most important thing. So I am prone to overwriting. I like overwriting, but I also want to make sure I whittle down to only what is needed. And reading short stories where they have a limited amount of time to tell you everything that's going to happen in this story can also enhance your own writing. So read things outside of your comfort zone. short stories, novellas, maybe even a cozy mystery. That will give you those story elements, and you'll see how other people get to everything sooner, knowing that they don't have the luxury of time to develop everything. Even the characters will probably be more crystal clear because you haven't meandered through the woods and over the hills in order to write about them. Also, listening to writing instruction, other writers, other people that are sharing their own writing processes. I love that. I love listening to the how and the why they do something in order to come to the conclusion or the type of story that they've come to. That is really quite important to do and to make sure that it all works somehow. Overall, it is important for you to use every tool and every mechanism that you possibly can to make you a better writer. So those are today's writer shorts with Tracee. I hope that these tidbits have been helpful to you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment to engage with me and tell me about your own writer tips that help you when you're writing your books. And I hope that my new story will be out very soon. I'm working hard on it and I can't wait to share it with you. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
About you, wish I knew what you were up to. Wish I can hit you up just to say